No burying obviously newsworthy stories.
No full-blown freakouts.
Just vibes. This is Vibes Only, a podcast that promises to check the vibes of American politics every week. Brian, the vibes this week?
Well, we're going to start with an answer to a question that we asked last week about why we're just now learning about Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito's Stop the Steal flag. More on that in a bit.
We'll also talk about some media pundits and Democratic strategists sounding the alarm bells as we creep closer to the 24 election.
Then we have to talk about Trump's public posture as we get closer to a verdict in the one criminal trial that we're going to get before the election.
All of that before we pull up our group chat, play an It's Giving, and leave you with a good vibe. Let's get into it. Brian, we have some breaking news. Relatively breaking news.
Breaking news.
It's kind of breaking. You texted it yesterday because last week on the pod, I had the question of if this photo of Justice Alito's house with the upside down flag, which is a hashtag trademark of being an insurrectionist, was flying during January 6th, post January 6th, shouldn't we have known about it 3 years ago when this photo was taken? Cut to
They heard us.
Washington Post. They had the photo 3 years ago, and they decided that it was not worth reporting on.
Wild to me how anyone could come to that conclusion. But yeah, apparently the entire staff of the Washington Post did just that. When someone handed them this photo, they then went to Alito's house, spoke with Alito and his wife. They confirmed that it was their flag that they had been flying upside down. They had a really sort of contentious interaction with them. And then they buried the story.
Interesting.
Yeah. And now we have it coming out, right? 6 months before the election, when the Supreme Court has already been really put to the limit in terms of its legitimacy. And we talked about that last week with Clarence Thomas's wife, with overturning Roe after the same justices had said that it was settled law during their confirmation hearings. Lots of scandals around. I shouldn't call them bribes, but functionally bribes with lots of money flowing into Clarence Thomas's world and network.
The RV.
The RV, all of these things sort of cropping up at the same time. And then now we just get to add this to the top of the cake because WAPO didn't think that it was worth talking about. I don't know how you come to that conclusion.
The senior managing editor, Cameron Barr, related to Bill Barr? No, he's not related. That's misinformation. But conveniently, they have the same last name. They felt they shouldn't do a single slice story about the flag because it seemed like the story was about Martha Ann, aka Mrs. Alito, and not her husband. And now they're saying, in retrospect, he should have pushed harder for the story. And yeah. You should have. You should have.
Yeah,
Cameron Barr.
I think that really hits on something that we didn't go deep on last week, but that I got comments online about, which is we also just can't accept that all of these things being attributed to the wives are just the wives, right? The idea that, because it was Mrs. Alito, it's actually not news, is putting a whole lot of trust in the guilty parties here who are flying the flag of they're telling me that she did it and that he wasn't involved. And it's of course they're going to say that, right? We have no way to know whether that's really true. And so we honestly need to be treating this like crisis that it is, because I think that this is worth broaching the subject of resignation. I, as an American, won't feel confident in decisions that Alito makes moving forward on lots of different issues. And so do I think he's going to resign? No. But should we be talking about it? Yeah, I think that we should.
Also, it's just so naive. And the American people are not naive, especially married couples. What you and your partner do, it's pretty intimate and you're pretty aware of what's going on in each other's lives. For the most part, I wouldn't know. I'm not married. But my assumption is...
Oh, I don't know her like that.
Right. It's I don't know her. That woman that lives in my house and has for the last 30 years? No, I don't know her. Don't know her.
So we definitely can't let up the gas pedal on this one. I want answers, and we need reporters who are going to be pushing for some transparency so that we don't have Alito deciding whether or not Trump is going to be held accountable for what he did on January 6th. If Alito was having FOMO that he wishes he was in horns inside the Capitol instead of in a robe at home. in addition to the rage that I felt over this buried WAPO story, we also have quite a few stories causing some panic and maybe some brown shorts in the Democratic Party overall.
Brown shorts as in people are pooping their pants?
Absolutely.
Okay.
People are shitting themselves. What's being referred to by Politico as a full-blown freakout within the Biden ecosystem, because there's really not been the shift in Joe Biden's favor that a lot of political strategists have been expecting to see over the last few months. And
I wonder why.
It's really, I mean, true, right? And let's get into it. But I think it's creating just a lot of uncertainty and anxiety among anyone who does not want to see Trump in office come November.
Yeah, because by the way, that's the most uncool thing, is to have Trump be reelected or elected in November, because you felt like it wasn't cool to care about reproductive rights, democracy, etc. And the candidate just happens to be at times cool but pretty old guy, Joe Biden. So hopefully more people will come around to that as we get closer to the election. And I'm sure as we get closer to the election, we will be talking about the Middle East and what's going on there, and how a vote for Donald Trump or a not vote is essentially a vote for Netanyahu, which is not great for human rights, period.
Totally. Then we had the New York Times come in with this story about how voters are pretty tuned out at the moment and how that's actually benefiting Trump.
Yeah, I read the article in the failing New York Times, and I, what I will say, we're both Democratic strategists in our own way. There is good information in this article about how much education needs to be done about the wins of the last 3.5 years. And because so much information is happening online, like reaching voters where they're at to get them that information is important. We learned in this article that 20% of voters in battleground states said that Joe Biden was responsible for ending the constitutional right to abortion. Not true. Almost half of the country believes the unemployment rate is at a 50-year high. It's actually at a 50-year low. And there was a recent poll, it was the Political Morning Consult poll. Voters were divided over who had done more to promote infrastructure improvements and job creation. Lest we forget, Joe Biden signed a $1 trillion, like Dr. Evil Pinky, like $1 trillion infrastructure bill into law, while Donald Trump repeatedly failed to advance the issue. So that just shows a deep fissure in information that's in the American electorate, and something that Democrats need to get on.
For sure. And we've talked about this before. It's the gap between what the data says and what the vibes are, right? When you see these numbers, the economy as a whole is good. The macro trends are good. They're in the right direction. And so there is a lot to celebrate there, but that does not mean that every individual person is doing better than they were 4 years ago, or that there aren't still huge problems with inequality or affordability, because that doesn't mean that all of our problems have been solved. It just means that for the most part, and in most parts of the country, if you want to find a job, you can probably find one. That inflation is lower here than it is in other G7 countries.
G7, okay, go off G7.
and it means that there is a tide that should over time help lift people up, even if you're not catching the wave that we're trying to ride right now. But that's not much of a consolation prize for people if you're struggling to afford your rent. And I get my rent's gone up literally 25% in 2 years.
No.
And yes. And so I fully get the frustration. And I think that a lot of people are just now understanding that having 3 really great jobs reports in a row, or inflation tick down to 3%, isn't going to magically solve all of Joe Biden's electability problems. And there's a ton of work to do between now and November to make sure that we avoid a second Trump administration.
Yeah, the way the New York Times led this article was that politically disengaged Americans are increasingly Trump curious. And they had the caveat that President Biden has a shot at winning some of them back. And they continue to talk about the importance of TikTok and digital media in full and reaching those voters where they're at. So Dan Pfeiffer, in his newsletter, The Message Box, talked about how TikTok is helping to elect Trump. I've seen it firsthand. I'm more on TikTok than you are. It is the wild west of disinformation. And there's some added layers to that. So TikTok users are disproportionately young. 62% of 18 to 29-year-olds use TikTok. I'm not 29, but I use TikTok. And it's this voting bloc, these younger voters who will ultimately decide the election. And TikTok users are more likely to be Biden defectors. So they're just like they're not riding with Biden. Let's just say that much.
Totally. So I feel like there's a confluence of a couple things happening with TikTok. As you mentioned, there's been a lot of analysis over what the political content on TikTok looks like. We've already talked about this as it pertains to like Israel, and there's been a big conversation there. We've talked a lot about the TikTok ban and how that legislation has been perceived on the platform. But if you just zoom out to look broadly at Biden and Trump actually performs much, much better on the platform than you'd expect, and much better than Biden. Lots of the largest political TikTok creators are conservative and are churning out a lot more content than their like liberal counterparts. I see that as being a result of two very timely challenges for Biden. One is that if you're running a policy-heavy campaign, you're already facing an uphill battle on getting people to understand what policy changes you have made, want to make, et cetera, right? That it's not, yes, we can from Obama, like that he's running like a pretty wonky, he's trying to run on his record, which is pretty wonky. And then number two, a good way to do that is to try to make it cool to support your campaign and to like lean on cultural figures to sort of bridge the gap between the wonkiness of the platform and the everyday voter. And right now online, it is not cool to support Joe Biden for any reason, particularly because of Israel. And so because on the platform, that issue is so dominant when it comes to like political content, I think that that's eroded a lot of his path to like creating sticky
engagement.
Content. Yeah, exactly. Is that like people don't really want to be seen as like supporting Biden, and even if they are politically aligned. And at the same time, the Biden campaign itself is going to have a hard time messaging because some of the things that they're running on are relatively wonky.
Yeah, we have some stats here. Since November, twice as much pro-Trump content as pro-Biden content lives on the platform. So that's 1.29 million positive Trump videos, which equals 9.1 billion views. Yikes. To 651,000 positive Biden posts with 6.15 billion views. So the Dems are behind big time. And we're going to see what happens. But I do know that I'm seeing more progressive messaging on digital, which is not necessarily overtly pro-Biden, but is progressive, which we know the conservative movement is not. But to your point, Charlie Kirk has 1.1 million followers on TikTok. He's one of many because his organization, Turning Point USA, has been investing tens of millions of dollars in the conservative digital media ecosystem over the last, 6+ years. And they're seeing the receipts. It's working.
Yeah, totally. I think that the left relies on organic a lot more and thinks that people should just do this because they believe in it. And you and I live and breathe in this space. And that's just like not a sustainable strategy to scale a messaging operation on par with what conservatives have built. So it's TikTok now. It could be a different platform in 2 years or 4 years or whatever. Like no matter what, you need to have a bench of people who have audiences that trust them at a time when trust in media is super low, trust in businesses is low, trust in government is non-existent. Like that is a powerful thing. And if we're not lifting those kinds of voices up, then we're not setting ourselves up for success 5 years, 10 years down the line.
Okay, we just talked about digital media, TikTok specifically, and how we need to be reaching voters there. Or you can be like the guy I'm about to talk about, Donald Trump, and create your entirely own social media platform and just reinvent yourself every week because he's reinventing himself right now. Again, we are in like the last, hopefully 2 weeks of this trial. They had a little break over the holiday weekend, and we're hearing closing arguments this week, and the jury will go and deliberate. But Donald Trump is trying to reinvent himself as a outlaw. Like, what? This isn't the Wild West. Even though you might think it is, you're not an outlaw. You're just a criminal.
He watched Yellowstone and was getting
Truly,
ideas.
he's going to get a horse and ride up, Fulton Street.
Fifth Ave. Yeah, so he did have this unhinged post as this trial comes to a conclusion about how it's super unfair that the prosecution gets to make their closing argument as like the last thing. And that's how literally all criminal trials work, which is just baffling. There was a really great quote. I think it was in Politico. A liberal is just a conservative who's been arrested. Because truly going through the criminal justice system and being in the criminal justice system will wake you up so much to all of the how broken it is, all of the injustices that exist and all of the disparities, et cetera. And so I thought it was funny that like suddenly Trump is going to be so concerned with how our court system operates because of course it personally affects him.
Right.
As you noted, he's trying to what he's doing is he's trying to undercut what a conviction will do to his presidential campaign.
Brian, he's been doing since day one. He's been trying to delegitimize this entire trial and process so that if and when he is convicted, people won't take it seriously.
Totally. And that's what Republicans have been doing, creating a circus outside of the courtroom, trying to politicize the whole thing. And he's just leaning into that even further. So he's been having rallies with recently 2 rap artists who are accused of conspiracy to commit murder.
Yeah, Sleepy Hollow and Chef G.
I don't know anything about these individuals, nor do I know anything about the crimes that they're accused of. But what we can say is this is really out there behavior compared to most presidential campaigns who have really intense scrutiny on anyone who would appear with the candidate. I've literally been a part of campaigns or been connected to campaigns that have turned people down because of like a single tweet. Right? That they couldn't have a photo with the candidate because of a single tweet that they put out, let alone have like pending criminal charges against them for something as serious as that. So it is really wild that he is fully embracing this strategy. And I don't know where that really ends, right?
Here's my thing, Brian, is that he's always played this like Law and Order card. And he said that he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and get away with it. The Supreme Court trial, they're basically saying that he has full immunity, presidential immunity for January 6th or any crimes. And we've talked like ad nauseum about like what those crimes are that like his lawyer said that he could do, like assassinate someone, literally. And now he's leaning into this outlaw image and also like selling merchandise with his mugshot on it. So it's like, what are you doing? Truly, what are you doing?
It would be great if this experience turned Donald Trump into a justice reform advocate who like wanted to push for like all sorts of really important changes that our justice system desperately needs. But that you hit the nail on the head. Like it's not going to do that. He's not actually for meaningful, substantive improvements to the system. He's for anything that benefits him. And so this is about what benefits him politically, what benefits him financially, and how he can use this entire thing to try to enrich himself and put himself back in office.
Yeah, let's see what happens. I don't know how long the jury is going to deliberate. They start this week. Ideally, by Friday, end of day, we're good to go. We know what's going on and we can move on with our lives either way and like pick up the pieces. But I don't know. I don't know how long it's going to take.
It's really crazy that it doesn't feel like it's that big of news that we could have a conviction in the next day or two, potentially, for the first time in American history of a former president. And that's a really big deal.
I don't think he's going to get convicted.
In this case? Oh, let's talk about that. Okay, wait, rewind. I'm sorry.
I'm not a lawyer. I did take the LSAT. That's as far as I got. But I was listening to NPR this morning, and they were really, I think the defense was really able to poke holes in Michael Cohen in a way that might ultimately benefit Trump. And remember, it's 34 felonies. So my gut was like, there's no way he's convicted for the umbrella of 34 felonies. I hope to be wrong, but my aura was like, maybe 1 or 2 or 3. I think it's like, it's really hard to prove without a reasonable doubt that someone did something.
I do not think he will be convicted on all charges, but I also do not think that he will be acquitted of them all either. There are several charges there that you do not need to hinge on Michael Cohen
Right.
in order to believe that they've been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. The numbers are all there. No one's disputing sort of like that the payments happened. I think that enough of the evidence is like empirical that
Fact-based. Yeah,
that I do believe they will be able to convict on several counts. If he is acquitted on all charges, I think that we should expect there to be a huge political backlash, that all of the cases against him will be politically like weakened as a argument as to why he should not be president, and he will look like a victim, which is at the very core of his campaign and has been since 2015, is victimhood. And we should be really concerned. We should like I will be very concerned about what polling and what like direction voters are moving in next week if he is acquitted on all charges. It's giving. So another big political event happened this weekend with maybe not so big of ramifications. And that was the Libertarian Party convention, where they selected the Libertarian nominee for president.
Did you see their logo, by the way?
I don't think I do know what the Libertarian logo is.
But it looks like Hot Topic designed it.
Well, they did have one very special guest at the Libertarian Party convention, Donald Trump, who was apparently not receiving the warmest welcome.
The Libertarian Party should nominate Trump for president of the United States. Whoa. That's nice. That's nice. Oh, only do that if you want to win. If you want to lose, don't do that. Keep getting your 3% every 4 years.
We saw a lot of applause for the president. Some people who were offering a couple of boos for the policies, not directly at going towards President Trump.
It's giving spin doctor.
Yeah, it's giving their logo, which is become ungovernable. And they're just like booing everything he says and are all wearing MAGA hats, which is by definition ungovernable if you're like fully disagreeing with all of the person who supports platforms.
I'm really shook by his response to their boos.
I loved it. That's nice. He didn't care, by the way.
He said, go ahead and get your 3% every 4 years. Oof! No filter. No filter.
It's giving when Donald Trump was on the phone with like the 8-year-old for Christmas, and he was like, do you still believe in Santa? And he's like, how old are you? 7, 8? Oh, it's marginal at best. And I'm like, he's not wrong.
Oh my God. No, not that. No, that was wrong.
I don't think it's wrong. I think it's marginal at best that a 7 or 8-year-old or 8 or 9-year-old still believes in Santa. No?
It's just not his decision to make.
Oh, no, but that's Trump's MO. It's Trump just doing Donald Trump and not his decision to make. He extends that into women's bodies, gay marriage. Like,
that's true.
That's his whole MO.
That's true. Yeah, the whole thing is giving Veep. I feel like there's probably a Veep clip that I'm not thinking of that she receives a similar reception to that. Ding. What's that I hear? It's your group chat. Well, we got a few notes in from listeners from last week's episode. We got somebody giving us the heads up that the Larry Hogan campaign, running for U.S. Senate in Maryland, has been campaigning to independents with a text campaign about how he supports women's reproductive rights, when as governor, he actually vetoed legislation that would have supported reproductive rights. So please flag for us all of the crazy texts that you're getting or see from friends on what these candidates are up to, and we can call them out every week.
The Pope, did you see this? The Pope basically said,
The F word.
F slur in a closed door meeting. And I have to publicly apologize for it. It's like not funny, but it's like, what?
I know the allegedly pro LGBT or at least LGBT neutral Pope, is throwing around the other F word. Everyone, I think that the Vatican's apology was also a non-apology. I don't.
Yeah, they were like, just in case this leaks, we just want to let you know that the Pope is sorry.
You know that apologies are really legit when they come out after something leaks. That's how you know it's
sorry,
it's authentic.
Wait, we have a real reason to talk about Survivor this week.
Finally.
I know. So
tell them the good news.
John Lovett of Love It or Leave It, which is a Crooked Media podcast, is on Survivor next season.
I was shook.
Yeah,
when I saw that.
He's in like the intro being like, I don't know how to camp. I want to like have a vibes only, like we need to have a bracket for next Survivor and we need to see how far we think John can make it. 100%. I think his social game will be really good, but it just takes one person knowing who he is to like.
Oh, he will definitely, they'll know who he is for sure. No question.
I don't think so.
Oh, no question. I truly think that he will be outed. I don't think the show's going to focus on it because they don't want to make the show political. And so my guess is that they're going to be like, he's a political speechwriter.
Right.
Is like how they're
presidents. Yeah.
Right. Is like my guess as to how it'll all be framed. I cannot wait. I have flirted with the idea of auditioning myself for Survivor. I'm an ideal Survivor contestant as a super fan.
I agree.
And this feels like a proxy of like, I think
I didn't want to burst your bubble, but I wanted to text you and be like, you'll never make it now.
Well, that's true. Yeah, they would never cast. I mean, I was not about to audition, but
why not? I think you would do really well on Survivor.
Oh, I would kill it. I'd be a challenge beast, and I'm a social threat. So like, and I know the show, so you
would know if an immunity idol is flushed that there'd be one back at camp. ASAP.
Yeah, I am not going home with an idol in my pocket. I will tell you that much. I did have a lot of people in my group chat freaking out about whether or not Biden is going to be on the ballot in November. And let me just reassure everyone, we don't have to get into the details, but like he will. So don't freak out. He will be on the ballot in Ohio. And then the other thing that really blew up my group chat was China took one of these robot dogs that we've all seen by now, very Dark Mirror, and put a huge gun on it so that they can run a robot dog around and shoot people? ? Spooky. All of the component parts are here for an apocalyptic movie, dystopian nightmare that I pay money to watch in theaters. We have robot dogs. We have AI that's like kind of out of control and suggesting crazy things to people. And now we're just weaponizing it all. So I'm sure nothing could go wrong.
You know what was big in my group chat, which I will leave with the Vibes Only audience to think about and potentially text us because I want to know your answers, was we posed a question to one another of what historical event, if you could time travel, what historical event would you go back to stop?
I mean, kill Hitler.
That was one person's. Someone else's. I had just recently watched a CNN documentary on the Challenger. I said I would go to NASA and I would say, we got to take these foam issues seriously.
I would pay all of my money to watch that conversation happen.
As a time traveler?
I would give literally anything to listen to you convince NASA.
Rocket scientists? Yeah.
That would be so iconic.
Because you know I would convince them. So another friend had like, I would tell, this was actually funny. She said, I would tell the settlers that the British were coming. And I was like, well, someone already did that. Paul Revere.
What?
Yeah. So Vibes Only, have a think. Because it's a really interesting thought experiment of like, if you could intervene, knowing that like, you know, there's some like controls of like the world wouldn't explode or you wouldn't like end civilization as we know it. But like, if you could, what would you do?
Okay, Glennis, I like this. This can be our group chat question of the week. Go to the show notes, click the link, send us your answer. And I would love to hear non-Hitler or similar answers because it is very noble to try to stop an individual who would kill a large number of people. But I'm really curious as to what other use cases there might be for this sudden technological development in our group chat. So click the link, send us a note, and we'll report our favorite answers next week.
Foam strikes. Are you ready for a good vibe?
I'm very ready for a good vibe. This is a great vibe, actually.
This is a really exciting vibe based on a lot of different discussions we've had on the pod about the importance of federal judges. The Biden administration has appointed 200 federal judges, lifetime appointments, federal judges. So he's appointed 201, boosting diversity in the federal courts. 64% of those confirmed judges are women. 127 women are confirmed. That's nearly 2.5 times the number of women appointed by Trump. Are we surprised? No. And 62% of those confirmed judges are people of color.
Super exciting. A total ideological shift of a bunch of courts, which is hugely needed after the damage that Trump did. And this will seriously outlast, Survivor reference, the Biden administration and how long he'll actually serve in office. So this could be one of the most important things that he does as president.
Those are all the vibes for today. Thanks again for listening. Are you having any full-blown freakouts as we get closer to Election Day? Let us know. Send us a text by clicking the link at the top of this episode description or email us at vibes@couriernewsroom.com. We'd love to help you channel that energy into something productive. If we don't chat before then, we'll be back again next week with more vibes.
Vibes Only is a production of Courier, a civic media company that protects and strengthens our democracy through credible, fact-based journalism and seeks to create a more informed, engaged, and representative America. Vibes Only is produced by Devin Maroney, with support from Courier's Kyle Tharp, RC DeMezzo, and Daniel Strasburger. Tara McGowan is founder and publisher of Courier.